time to dance.
If that ain't worth a Victoria Cross, I don't know what is.
A pacifist.
Welcome to Cocktail Cinema, folks, your weekly movie review podcast where we pair your favorite movies with craft cocktails. As always, I'm your first favorite bartender, third favorite author, Josh Price, and I am joined by my co-host, Greg, and our producer, Shasti.
I'm glad to be here.
This week we're doing things a little bit different, and we're actually reviewing a newer movie.
Cool.
So we are reviewing the 2021 Matthew Vaughn joint, The Kingsman.
Oh wait, I watched the wrong one.
You may have.
I'm just kidding.
This movie had a budget of $100 million, and it's only been out for a couple of months, but it has made back $125.9 million. It just hit, as of this recording, it just hit streaming on HBO Max a little over a week ago. And it's still making the rounds globally.
Right.
So that number will go up as we go on. But we wanted to get to this quick because one of our early episodes, we reviewed the first Kingsman movie.
Yeah.
So we felt it was an appropriate pairing.
Indeed. Much like your cocktails.
Yes. As always. So I'm going to kick this one off.
Get it.
Because I brought this to the table because I really liked the first two.
Mm-hmm.
And because of, COVID times, Warner Brothers has been allowing a lot of their movies to go up on streaming a lot earlier. So people have access to these blockbusters way earlier than they would have. And as the father to a young boy, that has been a godsend. I haven't seen, outside of COVID, I had not seen a new movie since the first Jurassic World.
And sometimes it's like the same day as they're releasing in theaters. So it's definitely helpful.
Yeah.
Not spending money.
So I was able to watch a brand new movie in my room, and I had a pretty good time.
All right.
Although I mean, we're going to talk about how different this is from the rest of them. I still overall, I mean, Matthew Vaughn knows what he's doing. He's worked with Guy Ritchie a ton, and it shows. There's some style similarities there, and he's taking that familiar style and taking it a new direction. This is a movie about World War I, a time period we don't talk about a whole lot in film.
Right.
And on top of that, it's a Kingsman movie, but it is still different enough from the rest of the series that this could have been a standalone film if they wanted it to be. Or the start of a whole new series. And
which they still could do.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of
space
room.
there still.
There's a lot of room.
Which is cool that you brought up World War One. Everybody seems to revolve around World War II. I don't know if it's because it's more of a modern day, more stuck in people's heads that way. But yeah, no, and there's a lot that we talked about off mic or before this there's a lot of correlation and kind of Easter eggs or funny things like Rasputin and his young boys or free love kind of free use kind of thing.
Free use.
But it was different.
Yeah,
definitely different than the other Kingsman. So if you're looking, we're trying not to give too much away here. But if you're looking for the same two Kingsmen that we had before, it ain't the same movie. This is a very serious flick, in my opinion. They changed course completely. Where I think that they needed to do that.
It would have gone off the rails very quickly.
Right, to set the tone for the next two. Or, well, I guess the prequels are tough. But you kind of get that backstory. The realness is there from the fun-loving Eggy that you're used to having. It all set in place by basically death and how the Kingsman came to be.
Well, and I mean, I know we try to review these films in a vacuum. But the premise for this film is set up in the first Kingsman. So during that period of time where Eggsy is being told very briefly the history of the Kingsman agency, they do reference to after World War I, the rich elite of the world came together because they had lost their sons and they promised they would never let that happen again. So they were going to come together and form an independent spy agency to keep the world safe. And this is, story-wise, the best way they could have done that. Because they're taking those 3 sentences from another movie and just expanding them in a very real and believable and followable way.
And they did that also by the character choice, the Duke of Oxford. You know what I mean? The Oxford's not rogues.
Yeah.
it's really kind of a cool. Did I just whistle with my throat there?
Mongolian throat.
Right. But no, it was really kind of cool to see the callbacks or call forwards. You know what I mean? To see kind of that they've kept in touch with the past and they've stayed focused on tradition.
Yes.
And that tradition is death. Basically, is what we're coming to with this movie. You know,
it is, and it's in the previous two films that was dealt with in a very lighthearted way.
Yeah.
That their tradition is dying and being replaced, and in this film, we're talking about a time period where it was the most devastating thing that had happened to the world since the dinosaurs were wiped out.
And they call to that, saying like millions of kids died, millions and millions of kids died, and like. This isn't war. This is death. This isn't fighting. This is dying.
Well, and they show the atrocity of trench warfare. You know, and there's battle scenes where, like, our main characters aren't even involved, and they're showing just 19, 20-year-old kids getting mowed down. And
in
just,
a very Matthew Vaughn fashion, for sure.
Right.
Like, those scenes always stick out with you, and like that's a very serious one too.
It felt very Dunkirk, but in a Matthew Vaughn way.
But Dunkirk's an amazing flick, so it's a good thing.
Yeah. It grounds the ridiculousness of this film in reality.
And not to give away too much, but there's a scene or two where it's instant. As soon as you hit the battlefield front lines, you're trying to get acclimated with your surroundings and your superior officers. Nope.
Yeah.
Fire.
Yeah.
We're now in a firefight, and now you're in your trenches, and it's cool. I mean, like I said, this is not that kind of movie. This is a darker movie than you're used to, but it needed to be.
Well, and they do play fast and loose with some of the history, but we are on scene for a lot of these inciting incidents. We're in Sarajevo for the parade for Franz Ferdinand. We are in Russia with Rasputin and Tsar Nicholas. We're in the Oval Office with Woodrow Wilson a few times.
Right.
And even though they're kind of tinkering with how these events played out a little bit, I mean, creative license, they are staying true enough to the spirit of the history to be like, oh, I am still immersed in what's going on because this is close enough that I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. And Rhys Ifans, like as Rasputin,
yeah,
amazing. Like that was kind of the only
recognize him.
Yeah, I know. That was like the only comic relief because, again, not trying to say too much, but his character, he does a great job with it, and it's fun. It's very, they stay true to their geography. You know what I mean? They bring up that kind of that England, Russia, Germany kind of thing. It's really kind of a fun play. That's the only comic relief I got from it. But
there were a few. Unfortunately, there are spoilers attached to the things that I found funny.
I know.
But there were a few things in the trailer that we can still talk to. Like there's moments with Rasputin that are so over the top Russian and they're drawn out, and it makes you just kind of laugh dryly.
Yeah.
This is not a belly laugher. This is because these comedic moments are surrounded by action and death, like we said. It's still fantastic to see, though.
Yeah, right. Is the fight sequence in there in the trailer?
Well, part of it.
All right, let's talk about how I enjoyed certain fight sequences. The choreography was fun and deadly and cool. I mean, it's the same kind of thing you're getting into with those other Kingsman movies. Is the sequencing is pretty cool. The camera work on those choreographed fights. That was the highlight. Choreographed. Sorry. Yes. Sorry. Sorry. Thank you. Choreographed. Chloroform. Cyanide.
No, and you're right. The choreography is hokey when it needs to be, and it's sharp when it needs to be. Like there are fights that are over the top and absolutely, like there's a fight that's set to the overture of 1812. So it's bombastic because there's cannons going. And then there's almost silent fights.
Yeah.
There's a battlefield scene in the middle of the night that is, again, very well choreographed. And it stays true to the spirit of the movies we've seen before, but is still giving us something fresh enough that and this is where I'm going to transition into the things that maybe could have been done better. The storytelling, the choreography, and the acting really hold up this movie, where I think Matthew Vaughn may have stumbled a couple of times with his camera work and his tricks. It's still very, very well done, but it is not necessarily up to the standard that we're used to, like when he's working with Guy Ritchie or even the last two. He's still king of the quick cut, but there's just a few things that don't play quite as well under a critical eye.
Yeah.
We talk about the editing team that any of these guys pick. You know what I mean? I could just see striving further and further away from movies they've worked on together, or even the first Kingsman. It's kind of like maybe you lose some of those people, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there's always like bringing your team along with you for this. And
Yeah.
based on how it's budgeted, and this being the third one, like you're right, it is that fresh take, because it is technically, it's a prequel.
Yeah.
But it's kind of, I feel the same way. Like, it was kind of stale for some of the editing tricks.
Yeah.
Like, the vision was still the Matthew Vaughn or Guy Ritchie vision there, but just execution on some of them. And that's just being picky. You know what I mean? That's really just getting three.
And do you think
your
that, like,
third
maybe
grade movie and just really tit for tat?
Do you think they did it on purpose, maybe because it's set in a World War I setting instead of like the modern day?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Really. I guess I'm making excuses for him.
Yeah,
I think it was an accidental nod to the time period, because our cinematographer here is Ben Davis, who has not worked on a period piece before, and to my knowledge, he hasn't worked very extensively with Matthew Vaughn.
Okay,
but he has done some action films, so it could have been partially attributed to he's getting acclimated to the way Matthew Vaughn works. So if Ben Davis comes along for Kingsman 4, maybe some of our complaints about this film will have been naturally taken care of.
No, I agree with that. I agree with that for sure.
and it's tough storyline as it is. I mean, basically we're dealing with 3-4 different kind of storylines running parallel.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of, we talked about fighting and sequencing. There's a lot of inward strife and self-loathing and moving on from past, and it's a history film basically in essence. So there is a lot of that reach out, the feeling of
absolutely,
you could have done something better. Regret,
well, there is a lot of regret in this film, and there are multiple characters who they're very relatable because of the way they deal with their pain and their grief, and they do what we are about to do, which is drink their feelings away.
I need it after this movie.
And so the things they're dealing with are very heavy, and they need something to get away. Well, tonight our drink isn't necessarily going to take us away, but it's going to make us feel a little more dignified. So what you have in front of you is the Manhattan Maketh the Man. We have 1 ounce of whiskey, 3/4 of an ounce of amaretto, 1/2 an ounce of sweet vermouth, 1/2 an ounce of dry vermouth, 1/2 an ounce of simple syrup, and 5 dashes of black walnut bitters. Pour that into a low glass on the rocks. Give it a quick swirl, and there you are.
Ooh, nutty.
So,
did you add this nutty faction into this because of the cyanide?
I did. So,
because the movie's so nutty.
I was already kind of thinking we were going to have to do a whiskey drink, just because, our main characters are British, and they're known for gin and whiskey, and we've done enough gin lately. So I wanted to go back to my roots and stay true to the movie, and at the same time, historically speaking, Rasputin was poisoned. It didn't stick. So, in the real life Rasputin was poisoned, and then he fell over, got back up, and he was fine. And then they tried to kill him 3 other times, and then it finally took. But so I went with the amaretto because
they say like 3 times.
Cyanide smells like almonds. Yeah. So,
in case you didn't know, next time you run into a tart.
So, audience at home, those of you watching, when you see one of my friends keel over, you'll know that's the one that I put the cyanide in.
Great. Hopefully you can keep it.
Right.
We'll fix that in post.
For something that's 100% booze, it tastes pretty good.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's
I mean, Perfect
basically
Manhattans are one of my favorites. I order it. If the bartenders are capable, I order that.
Yeah, they're all about the balance.
Mm-hmm.
And, we stress that a lot on this show when it comes to our drinks, but especially a perfect Manhattan, you have to have these ratios down. They're not difficult to make. They take a little bit of care.
Mm-hmm.
And
good. With the walnut and the simple syrup there, it kind of just tastes kind of like not like a maple syrup, but kind of like a syrup, like a pancake syrup almost.
Which, in my opinion, a good Manhattan has that natural woody flavor to it.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, so now we've wet our whistles. Grego,
Yes, sir.
when I got here today, you told me, and I quote, "This is one of the most ridiculous movies I've ever seen, and it was not what I expected."
Okay.
Because this part we haven't talked about off mic. What were you expecting, and did this movie? Was it a good change in your opinion?
Yeah. I guess to preface that, I was talking about more so the other Kingsman. I was thinking it's gonna be fun, like fireworks blowing off heads and having a lisp with Samuel L. Jackson and Eggy getting anal from a princess, But it's like this is not that movie. This is that's kind of where I was coming from, and that it was. This is like a total war movie, like a kind of an. There was certain things like I loved that like they brought back cousins that were from the same kind of family that now run England, Russia, and Germany. And they had their little quirks and stuff like that. And they're still using their little childish bullshit to run countries, basically. And it's silly that it sometimes feels like that's how today
it's probably the realest part about the movie.
Right.
Truthfully.
So, I mean, I guess I only said that because I was expecting so much not this movie. I was thinking it was going to be funny. Fun to watch. I mean, when I watched this, I couldn't take my eyes off the movie. Like, I started it. There's a couple of scenes in this movie I really, really want to talk about, but I was like, oh, but it takes your breath away for a second, and then I don't know. It's just one of those movies I was not expecting because we have these. I know it's preludes, but we have two other movies that were done in this vein, and it was cool to see. It wasn't the entertainment value type of movie where it was like big.
It's not a popcorn movie.
I guess that's the best way to put it. I guess I'm losing my train of thought in that fact, but it's just different. It's now it didn't hit me this way I expected it to.
Yeah. I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah.
Pleasantly surprised.
It's different.
I was when I watched it, I knew.
I mean, I kind of wanted the other ones.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I knew that because that's the kind of movie that really gets you going. And I was real interested to see what you had to say. Now, I'm going to look forward a little bit. So, did you happen to watch all the way through the credits?
I did not know.
So it's not like at the very end of the film, but it's during the credits sequence. We are introduced to a new villain and two new historical figures, which, if you're familiar with what went down after World War I, you can probably take a guess at who it was. I'm not going to spoil it.
Yeah.
But it kind of sets up another film that takes place before the first Kingsman movie.
Like in between?
Yeah.
The growth.
Yeah. So
Great. Now we have a Star Wars saga starting here.
Well, and that's kind of what I want to get to. I think the strength of this series could be the same thing with like Assassin's Creed, really tying into old historical events and seeing how, if this was a real agency, they interacted with real
that would
history.
be really cool because they did touch on a lot of the stuff we talked about, like Rasputin and his thing, and even just overall how things kind of panned out.
Well, this was more true to World War I than anything outside of a legitimate war movie that you're going to get. Like, even Wonder Woman tried to address like trench warfare, but this blows it out of the water.
Yeah.
Well, and compared to other films too, it's like a lot of franchises do bring in a prequel at some point. But this is almost what you're saying, Lee. This like the sequence they show after the credits is always going to lead into the next film. But that's like almost like anything after that is still a prequel.
Yeah,
for so many years.
Yeah.
Which I kind of hope they go that route, which they did the more historical route.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Because for as much as I was complaining about the over quirkiness, that's what I did love about the first one with Samuel L. Jackson's character, and they're not going to be able to tell historically,
right?
Like
But we can take some of these historical characters and utilize historical quirks.
Yeah.
Like if you wanted to tell a story about World War II, you can talk about how Hitler was a terrible painter. You can talk about how Stalin
failed art school student.
You can talk about how Stalin just threw ragers 6 nights a week. There's room to have these goofy events,
right,
where the Kingsman just happened to be there trying to influence things. And I really hope
if they don't write that, we should.
Yeah, seriously. Matthew Vaughn, I know you're listening. I'm a good writer. I can do this. I can help you. But yeah, I'm really looking forward to the future of this series. After the second film, I did have a few doubts. I liked the second film, but it was not as strong as the first one. So this coming in and kind of changing the game enough to be refreshing, I am very much looking forward to the future, and not just the very next film, but this is Hollywood. We're going to get at least 2 or 3 more of these.
Yeah, probably.
And
nothing new under the sun.
We have a really good chance of getting a solid 5-6 film series. We don't see that anymore.
Yeah, it's crazy with that huge budget too. We're gonna get these.
Well, and compared to its sister films, this is pennies.
Right.
We're making Marvel movies for almost $500 million.
Yeah.
So this, I'm impressed. However, it might be time to look into people who aren't always impressed.
Right. Okay. I think I know where you're going with this.
Yeah. Let's hop on over to good old sour potatoes and take a look at the critic score for The Kingsman. Let's see here. We've got, so this has a critic score of a 40. Am I reading that?
Yeah, a 42 and an 80.
New.
And an 80 from audiences. All right, Greg.
Right. Right. Put it on me.
It's time.
So you can think some more.
It's time. All right,
Hold
so
up, guys. He's still looking.
is that score a short pour or an over pour?
They short poured this one a little bit. I don't like it as much as you, but they low poured this quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'd put this more of like a 66 level.
Wow. Okay.
Yes, I enjoyed the other ones a little bit better. I love the storylines and stuff, but it just didn't really do it for me all the way. So I think they short poured this one.
Shasti,
Yeah,
same question.
I think they had a heavy hand on that pour for sure. Or a light hand on that pour for sure.
Give it a 24.
Give it a 20. I'm at a 66 too.
All right.
Yeah, it's. I like what you said with the outro and where it's going, and I hope that
they bring Guy Ritchie.
Yeah.
It's going to be no surprise that I think they severely underpoured this film, and I would have rated it. This is a tough one. I think officially I'm going to give it an 80, a solid 80.
Okay.
I don't think it's one of the best movies ever made. I do think it's very well acted. Everything I said today and more. Like, I highly recommend that people go see this. And for my criterion, if a movie hits in the 80s, it's a movie I deeply think people should go see.
Right.
I think that score is really low. Like, for as much as I thought I was about to say about it, like, that's bad.
I thought 66 was low for me.
Shockingly
The audience
low.
score was like 80, so that's like,
Which is surprising to me too.
If you like the first one better than the second one, this is still going to be fun to watch. If
Yeah.
you've never seen any of them, you need to watch this and the other two.
Yeah,
as well.
that is a
They're all
noticeable
must-watch
underpour.
movies.
Yeah.
Even though I gave it a low 66, they're still must-watch movies. In my opinion.
Yeah. And you're a little more frugal with your pours than I am generally. So that's to be expected. But holy cow. Audience. Do you think they overpoured or underpoured this movie? Did we overpour this movie? Let us know down in the comments. You know the drill. Let us know what your score is and why. And for those of you who haven't seen it, definitely go see it so that you can go down to the comments and let us know what you think. That said, Greg, Shasti, love you guys. It's been a good time. I really liked this movie. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about it because now I can put it out of my brain for a minute and it won't be so obsessive. But now I have to go watch another movie, so I have to say goodbye.
she'll be fine. And so will you, as long as we have an honest conversation.